how much of this is the Army, as it says, it needs to prepare for the wars of the future, compared to the Army being unable to meet some recruiting goals?
Unfortunately, they're one and the same. And Chief of Staff of the Army, General George, in one of the articles that was out today from Defense One talking about this, where he was saying, hey, we're trying to, look ahead. We want to get ready for the next war that's coming. So that's what these changes are representing. And if that were true, that would be one thing. But look, we finished the counterinsurgency wars decade ago, long time ago. They should have made this transition a long time ago. I actually wrote an article in the Armed Forces Journal while still on active duty in January 2008, where I was talking about the need to start doing things like counter-drone capabilities, because it was clear that's where the wars were going. But why is it that the Army is only now and starting to do that? That tells you that they're not looking ahead with what's coming. They're still stuck in what they've been doing for a long time, and this change is long overdue.
And with that, the Army wants to add 7,500 troops to missions, like you were saying, counter-drone units, cybersecurity, long-range missiles. What does the wars of the future that they're talking about actually look like?
Well, look, I mean, we've had it put on display, not just in the Russia-Ukraine war, though it's certainly on the biggest scale, but really the Azerbaijan and Armenia war in 2020 is the first time that we saw graphically how drone warfare is going to completely change how ground operations are done. And that's where drones took out a whole bunch of enemy tanks during that time, and the coordination between artillery and drone warfare. I mean, it was graphically put on display. Everyone should have paid attention to that. And then, of course, ever since the Russia-Ukraine wars came on, it's just been on steroids, so to speak. So the fact that in 2024, you're just now getting around to saying you're going to make those changes, it illustrates that there's a real problem in the leadership of the Army not being very flexible and not looking ahead, because they've been missing what's right in front of them. So I think you might want to look at getting some new Army leaders, not just a new guy like McConnell there. Maybe they need to do that in the Army too.
Many of the eliminated positions are in counterinsurgency, certainly very key in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Though we're not in those conflicts directly anymore, I mean, how can the U.S. still be prepared to fight with these future cuts in that style of battle?
Well, look, we don't need to force or put our force in a position to be able to fight counterinsurgency wars. That's not in our interest to do so. We shouldn't have even fought the ones that we did for as long as we did either. Those are temporary situations. Our force is supposed to defend our country against people of potential existential threats. That's why we have an Army. That's what it needs to be focused for and prioritized for. If you have to do these little ones, if somehow something is forced upon you, that's something you can adjust to on the fly, which is exactly what we did in 2005. But we should have gotten out of that as fast as possible, because all it does is drain your resources and it deteriorates your ability to potentially fight these existential threats. And that's what I saw while I was still on active duty, and it's even more prevalent now.
And with the Army cutting 24,000 positions, but these are positions largely that haven't been filled, why is it the Army has struggled with the current generation of potential recruits?
Well, look, I mean, a lot of the things I've talked about, even on your network here, about, say, for example, the troops the U.S. has in Iraq and in Syria. Those troops have nothing to do with American national security. You just had 3 of them killed because they were pointlessly out there allowing the Iran-backed groups to get at them because of what's happened in the Israeli-Hamas war. And they see these kinds of things all over the place. They see that we stayed in Afghanistan for a full decade beyond what was useful, and no one was willing to do the right thing and get them out. Why would someone young want to join the service when they're going to go and be put in the middle of some desert somewhere fighting a war and possibly dying like these did, when it's not even in our interest to do so? We're not being threatened. That's a much bigger deal than what people are recognizing, because people want to serve their country. I certainly did and was proud of the service, but to defend America, not just be thrown out there every time there's some opportunity for a conflict or kept in harm's way unnecessarily.